talk about how I worked through some imposter syndrome yesterday and did some inner child healing that led to a emotional release of years worth of PTSD in my body. Now, this might be a little bit triggering, the things that I'm going to talk about, so I just want to say that before we get into it. Yesterday I was watching these videos by a woman who is a celebrity coach. I'll tag her below. She's really great. And when she's talking about helping people become a celebrity or reach a certain level of fame, it's not in the way that you would necessarily think. She said that there are so many good-hearted people that are going to change the world, that at the same time, because they're so self-aware and conscious, that they actually push being on the center stage away in like high levels of success because they've seen negative things from people that are in those places and spaces. But that's not you, that's not me. Like, we would just bring so much love and unity into the world if we were the forefront leaders. And so she's helping people in that capacity, which, blessings, love that. Okay. And so I was listening to her because I have some of those fears running inside of me, and decided that I was going to go in meditation in my Akashic Records and see if I could find any different timeline versions of me that were famous or a celebrity. And I don't like to call them past lives because they're all happening at one time. That's how you can access them and speak to them currently. And so I found her. She was a hip-hop artist, like a really famous dancer. And I said, I knew it because I used to go to festivals all the time, and I'm not what I would call like a great dancer, but in the right context, it was almost like I was channeling something while I was dancing, and I was a really good dancer. And some might say, you know, that's because you're letting loose and you're in the zone, you're in the flow state. But I think it was really coming from somewhere else, and it was coming from her. I was channeling from her. I was telling this different timeline version of myself what was going on in my life, and asked her why I was scared of these levels of success. And she said, well, you're afraid to utilize your sexual magic. And she said, but that actually means like your creation magic, like your magnetism. And I said, well, why do you think that is? And she said, probably because your mom abandoned you. I was like, oh no. The person who created you and that utilize creation magic against you, that's why you're afraid to step into it. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. Also, my grandparents that raised me, even though I'm so appreciative of them and love them, they also abandoned me in a lot of different ways growing up. I didn't get all the things that I needed in life. And so there was this deep core wound of me needing to prove myself, prove my worth, to not only to myself but to other people, and earn their love. And I have still been carrying that with me even to this day, and it has been running back there in my subconscious, infusing into my business and into my life. And I have healed like leaps and bounds with that, but I didn't realize that it was still something that needed to be actively worked on. And that's how the ascension journey works too. Like, you'll be working on something and then you get like really healed with it, and you're like, okay. And then it comes back around. Well, we're in the phase of coming back around. Fast forward, I'm watching Face Off, which is a sci-fi special effects show where they like create these beings from their imagination. And the episode that I was watching was on Mother Gaia, and so they had to do their own interpretation, and then they had to infuse something that reminded them of their mom. And I was like, okay, that makes me a little sad because I don't have a great relationship with my biological mother, which is much better now, but still. And my grandmother has passed on to the other side. And so that was ping number 2 from my higher self about things that I needed to process and work on. You know, it's really beautiful though. I went and asked my son if he was doing that challenge, what would remind him of me. And he said, oh, I would create her like a fairy, or the character Joy from Inside Out. And that just, I almost started crying. I was like, oh my God, that's so sweet. Like, you know me so well. Fast forward, I'm working on this project that I have been for a while, and I'm super excited about it, but recently I've been feeling a lot of resistance towards doing it, and I couldn't figure out why. And I thought it was because I needed to wait for divine timing, but it was something like deep down inside. And part of it was the fear of abandonment from childhood and needing to prove my worth to other people or earn their love. And so I was coming from like this scared energy within myself. I know this is all over the place, but I just remembered. So my son and I, before I went into this inner child meditation we're about to talk about, had watched this psychological thriller, and I don't usually watch those because my poor baby mind cannot handle it and I end up having nightmares and stuff, but it doesn't affect him the same way. And so he convinced me to watch it. We watched it together. Actually, it was really good and it wasn't super scary. However, in some parts of it, there was a father who was a alcoholic, and he wasn't as, well, I wouldn't say he wasn't abusive, but he yelled at the kids, and he used some corporal punishment, right? And I actually had to fast forward during that section because that's what happened to me in childhood. And the mom had passed away, and the dad was like always drinking and upset with the kids and shaming and guilting them, and the kids were having to walk on pins and needles. And I remember that in childhood. Like, it was very intense and scary at times, and I was always afraid that I was going to get punished or shamed. And I was like, oh, that's a lot of resistance to what I'm having with this project right now. And so I go in to speak, with whoever wants to come up in my Akashic Records, and my inner child comes up, and I was like, hey, what's going on? And then I started talking to her about the project. And she was like, I just feel like I'm so stupid, and everybody's going to think it's not worth it, and they're going to see that I am an imposter and I don't know what I'm talking about, and they're going to yell at me. And I was like, oh, this is stuff that's coming up from the past. Okay. I was like, I need to show you that we're not that person anymore. We're not living in those experiences in those places and spaces. I said, what we're doing is we are hinging our success on other people's approval, when all we need to do is give approval to ourselves. I said, this project is going to people who are younger versions of us anyway, energetically. Like, they're going to learn all the tools and resources that we wish that we would have had earlier on our path to save us a lot of time and energy and research. And so they're going to love it, and they're going to love us. But more importantly, we need to love ourselves. Okay? We need to accept ourselves. We need to know that we are very intelligent, that we're very funny, that we're very witty, that we're very magical, that we have a lot to offer the world. And that's enough. Okay? Even if we don't do the project. Okay? Like, we're amazing just because we exist. And she was stuck in what I call an energetic timestamp. So when you have PTSD and trauma that's not processed through your body and emotions and stress hormones, sometimes your inner children think that something is happening over and over and over again. And anytime you experience those similar emotions with things in adulthood, it kind of zaps you back to those older states of consciousness and behavioral patterns of like fight or flight or freeze or fawn. And that's how we get caught in these loops, and we're not able to make progress in our life. And so that's why it's fundamentally important that we're figuring out where these things are coming from at the root, and that we take time to process them. So me talking to her, I had a huge upchuck. I'm just crying and, going through all these memories and helping her feel safe and secure and loved. And it was just a beautiful, beautiful experience. It was very intense, but I could see how my guides for the past couple of days were triggering me multiple times so that we could heal a lot of things at one time. But I also had to make the conscious choice to go in and sift through the pain so that we could release it, and so that I could release my inner child from that energetic timestamp. And then afterwards I felt so much better. And then I started working on the project, and it was super fun and magical, and I'm super jazzed about it again. I'd love to hear in the comments if this resonated with you, or if these are things that you've been experiencing in life and that you're also working through actively, which if you made it this far in the video, I'm sure that you are. If you want to learn how to do these processes within yourself at a deeper level in your Akashic Records with your inner children, you can sign up for the Quantum Evolution Academy, and you can find it in my bio or the comments or the description box below.